Hello everyone, welcome back to this session. So today in this session we are going to discuss the coding basics or the code basics for Puppet, which will enable you to basically get started in Puppet and start your own configuration management projects. Alright, so without wasting any time, let's go ahead and start with this session. Alright, so the most basic or the unit of coding in Puppet is basically a resource. So what is a resource? A resource could be a file, it could be a command, it could be a package, it could be anything, right? So this is the basic thing that you define in a Puppet catalog, which basically has to be executed or placed on the agents, right? And the way to define a resource is like this. So basically first you define the resource type. So like I said, it could be a package, it could be a file, it could be anything, right? And then you define the resource name. Okay, for example, if it's a file, you'll specify the path over here. If it's a package, you'll specify the package name over here, and then you specify the attributes, whether it has to be installed, whether it has to be present there, whether it does not have to be present there, what is the permissions of the file. So all that can be declared in the attribute and the value, and then you close the brackets, which basically means that this particular resource has been finished, this particular resource has been defined. Now don't worry if you get scared, don't worry if you are basically getting scared with the syntax. So let me go ahead and show you an example which will clear things out more than what we are understanding over here. So guys, this is a sample syntax for a resource. So over here we have basically defined a package. So say you want to install Nginx on agent, all you have to do is define this resource. So what is Nginx? Nginx is basically a package. So the resource type goes package, the package name is Nginx. And what do we want with Nginx? We basically want to ensure that it is installed on the system on which we are targeting on, right? So this is how you define a resource in Puppet, and through this you can basically configure your agent's configurations using the resources. So basically whatever resources you mention gets installed on the agent. All right, moving forward now guys, when you combine a bunch of resources, now of course when you're dealing with an agent, it's not just one resource that you will install. You could be installing hundreds or thousands of resources together, right? So all these resources combined, they have to be one entity, otherwise you'll have to define each and every resource separately, probably in a separate file. So to solve that problem, what we do is we come up with something called as manifests. So what are manifests? Manifests are nothing but a combination, or they basically group resources together, and they are defined inside one file, and that file is called the manifest file. Okay, so the manifest file can have multiple resources inside them, and once a manifest file is basically applied on an agent or on a slave, all those resources are installed one by one. All right, with this guys, let's go ahead and start by creating our first manifest in Puppet, right? So what we're going to do is, let me jump onto my master. So guys, this is my master. Now the first thing that I want to do is I want to create a manifest, so that basically if I want to install say Apache on my agent, how would I do that? So what I can do is I will go inside cd/etc/puppet. Here you go. And now inside this directory you will have something called as code, right? So you'll have to go inside code, then there will be something called as environment. We'll go inside environment. Let me just do an ls over here. Okay, so we have to create a folder called environment. We do not have a folder called environment by default. So what we can do is you can create a path. So I'll do a sudo mkdir -p, and let me specify the path now. So I want the environment folder, and inside the environment folder I want a folder called production. Now inside production I would need a folder called manifests, and inside manifests I will have to create a file. All right, so let's first create this path. So this path is now created. Let's go inside this path. So we'll go inside environments, inside production, and inside manifests. Okay, so now we will create a file called site.pp. So let's do that. So what I'll do is I'll type in nano site.pp. Okay, and I'll hit enter. So this has to be backed up by a sudo nano site.pp. Awesome. Now the first thing that I would do is I'll have to specify the node. So right now we are not getting into which node we have to specify here. So we'll just specify node is default. That means that any agent who is basically requesting the master for an update, these whatever we are going to write over here is going to be applied on that agent automatically. Okay, so what we first want to do is say we want to install Nginx. Okay, so I'll say package. So first I have to specify the resource type. This I specified, and then I'll specify the resource name. So this is the package name Nginx. I've specified that, followed by a colon. Then I specify the attribute. So the attribute is ensure, which should be equal to installed, right? Followed by a comma. And now I'll close the package. That's it. So this is one resource that we have defined inside a manifest. Now let us define one more resource. So what basically I want to do is I also want to create a file, and the file should exist in /tmp, and the file name should be say status.txt, right? So again it will be followed by a colon. Then I'll specify the attribute. Now the attribute for a file would be, the first thing that I would say is content. What should be inside that file? So inside that file there should be a text which says Nginx installed. Okay, followed by the mode, which would basically specify the permissions of this file. So say I want the permissions to be 0644, followed by a comma. Okay, so everything seems fine till over here. So what I'll do now, I'll do a control X, Y, enter. So my file site.pp is now saved inside the manifest folder, which exists inside the environment production. Okay, so this is done. Now what I'll do, I'll go to any of my slaves. So let's go to slave 1. This is my slave 1, guys. So what I'll do, I'll just type in puppet agent hyphen test, right? And I'll specify it with a sudo. So let's hit enter. Okay, so we'll have to specify hyphen test, and we'll hit enter. And now it says applied catalog in 0.01 seconds. All right, so let's check if we have the tmp file over here, which should have a status file. So the status file is not there. Okay, I think the name of the folder should be manifest. Let's check that. Alright, so I think, guys, I got the problem. The folder name has to be environments. Okay, so if you look over here, alright, so let's try this. So let's try to change this folder name. So for that I'll have to come out, again come out, and now let's just copy this folder, cp-r, let's call it sudo, change the environment folder to environments, and let's move it so that it gets renamed itself. So let's do a cp here. Okay, that's done. And now let's just remove environment. Done. So if I go inside environments now, let's just check if everything is there. So production is there, manifest is there, and site.pp is there. So let's try to do a test again. So it says there is an syntax error at the end of the site.pp file. Let's check what syntax error are we dealing with. So it's a good thing that we're getting a new error now. So I'll do a sudo nano on site.pp, and okay, so here's the problem, guys. We didn't close the bracket. So let's close it, save the file, come back over here again, and do a puppet agent test. So now I think We are progressing. Okay, so the catalog has been applied, and now let's check if the software was indeed installed or not. So how we can check that? We can basically just go to our EC2 management console. We did this on slave 1 test, right? And let's just go over here and paste this IP address. So yes, Nginx has been installed on slave 2 automatically. Again, if we want to check, so what we can do is we also wanted a file, right? So what we'll do a cat on /temp with the status. So yes, status.txt file also has been created, and if you do a cat on that, it says Nginx is installed. Awesome, guys. So we have successfully implemented one manifest on your slave, which has basically installed Nginx, and it has created a file on the agent itself as well, right? So congratulations, guys, on your first manifest. Let's see what is next in our slides. All right, so we've basically created a manifest. Let's go ahead and see the different things we can do with the manifest, right? So there are 3 components of manifest. Basically, we can call these components, which can be used inside manifest for greater functionality. The first component would be variables, right? So you can use variables inside a manifest file to basically store values and then pass them on to the body, or you can basically create variables inside any or at any place inside the manifest, and then that variable can be called inside any resource, right? So let's try and check this. So if you can see of the example over here, the example says that it creates a variable called $text and it saves the value hello world inside it, and then it creates a file, right? And the content, it says hello world over here, but basically what we're going to do is instead of this, we are just going to put $text. Let's see what happens. So if I go to my terminal, so this is my master. So let me just change the site.pp. So what I'll do, I'll create, so like the slide says, you can create the variable anywhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable called text, and let's say the text says Intellipaat DevOps course. Okay, let's say it says this, and the content would basically be changed, and the content would go something like this. It will be $text. Okay, let's try to save it, and let's go to our slave 1 and let's see if we can do something with it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try and do the test again. So sudo puppet agent -- test. Let's hit enter. All right, so something happened. Let's check. So cat /tmp, the file name would be same, status.txt. Let's see what it says now. So as you can see, the text has changed to Intellipaat DevOps course, and this basically value was taken from the variable. As you can clearly see that I defined the text inside the variable, and that variable was called over here, and this content was basically added to status.txt, and this is exactly what we wanted. Awesome. So you have seen how variables work, but now let's make it a little more interesting. So let's talk about loops, right? So what are loops? So whenever you want to run something iteratively without having the need to write the code again and again, that's basically the main use of loops, right? Now, how can you use loops in manifest is something like this. So say you want to install multiple packages inside your slave, right? Say I want to install Nginx and I want to install MySQL Server. So how can I do that? Now, in order to do that, what I'll do is in my variable, I'll basically create an array. So basically I've created an array which contains 2 values. One is Nginx and one is MySQL Server, right? And then inside the packages, what I've done, while I'm naming the package, I've basically called the variable $package, and then I've ensured that these packages are installed, right? So let's try this code out. So what I'm going to do is let me switch to my terminal, and this is my master, guys. So let us remove some code from over here, and this is what we want to deal with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable called packages. And let's give the values inside packages. The first value that I want to give is, say, Nginx is installed on slave 1. Let's try to install Apache 2, right? And let's try to install MySQL server. Okay, so I'm gonna show you guys that if you see right now inside my slave 1, if I check, do I have Apache 2 installed to service, Apache 2 status, you can see it says the Apache 2 service could not be found. So once we run this test, let's see what happens, right? So first I want Nginx to be removed. So what I can do is sudo apt get purge Nginx. So I'll just remove it manually from over here, and then this should remove Nginx. Yes, so Nginx has been removed. So I can just verify that by going over here and refreshing on the IP address. Let me just see if the service is also down. Service Nginx status. Service is running, so let's stop the service. So service Nginx stop. We'll have to add a sudo. Yes, so Nginx service is now stopped. So if I refresh it, I can see that the website says the site can't be reached. Awesome, this is what we wanted. Now what we are going to do is I'm installing Apache 2 and I'm installing MySQL server on my agent. So I have specified the site.pp on the master. And now let me go to my slave 1. So this is my slave 1, guys. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to test. So sudo puppet agent -- test. I'll hit enter. And now it's basically applying the catalog. So so first let's check if Apache is installed. So if I go to the browser and if I hit refresh, let's see what happens. Okay, so it still says it can't be reached. So let's check where the problem is. So if I do a service Apache 2 status, it says the Apache 2 service could not be found. That could basically mean that probably there's some problem in my site.pp. Okay, so here it is. Here is the problem. So I did not change the value of the packages over here. So I just have to specify packages and I'll have to save the catalog, and that's it. If I come back here, if I again do a puppet agent test, let's see what happens now. Alright, so Apache 2 has been installed, and as you can see in the browser, it automatically refreshed, and now you can see the Apache page. It is now installing MySQL server. So let's wait for it to install MySQL server as well. Okay, so MySQL server is also created. Awesome. So Apache 2 service is now installed. So we can also check it on the browser, on the terminal. Service Apache 2 status, and you can see Apache is now running on this slave. Similarly, if I want to check service MySQL server status, so MySQL D status, I'm not sure what the name of the service is. Service MySQL status. Yes. So MySQL service is also active and it's running. So we successfully installed 2 packages, 2 softwares on this machine using loops in manifests. All right. So let's come back to our slides. So we are done with variables. We're done with loops. Now let's go ahead and understand what are conditions. Alright, so now let's discuss conditions. So conditions are basically statements which helps us to take a decision based on a particular output. For example, over here we say we are basically making use of the keyword only if, right? So only if this command is successful, only then it will basically run this particular command, which is Apache 2 is installed, right? Otherwise it will not run this particular command. And what this command is basically doing, this command is basically putting this text which is Apache 2 is installed inside this particular text file, which is /tmp/status.txt. okay, so this command says only if this particular command goes true, it should execute this particular command, right? And what is this command doing? This is basically saying, is Apache 2 present or not? So if Apache 2 is present, it will return something on the command line, otherwise it will not. So only if command ensures that if this command goes successful, this will return a code which is 0, and only if the code returned 0 is seen by this command, only then it will run this particular command which is written over here, right? If this returns the value false or 1, in that case this command will not run. So let's try this out. So let me go to my master terminal. So let's clear the screen first. So sudo nano init and sudo nano site.pp. All right, so what I want to do is I want to execute a command. So let's do that. So let's remove everything first. Okay, so basically I want to define a resource called exec, which basically deals in passing commands to the agent. So I want to do exec, and I want to name this thing as, say, conditions, right? I want to name it something. Let us name it like this. So conditions. And what I want to do is I want to pass a command which basically says that /bin/echo. Say if we are checking if Apache is present or not, so we'll say Apache 2 is installed. So we'll say this, and this has to go inside /tmp/status_apache.txt. This will go over there. So this command should run only if the command the command would be /bin/which Apache 2, and only if this command is successful it should run this particular command, right? So, and now we'll just close the resource, and that's it. Let's save the file, and now let's come to our slave, which is this. Let us try to run the test. So sudo puppet agent -test. This basically has now created a file. So let's see if the file has been created or not. cd/tmp/status underscore. So we don't have a file over here. So let's see status underscore. Okay, so let us go inside tmp first and then do an ls. So I can see status underscore apache file is present. So I'll just cat it status underscore apache.txt. So it says Apache 2 is installed. Reason being, over here do have Apache installed. But let us go to another slave which I have connected to my master. Let's see if we have Apache 2 over here. So service Apache 2 status. So Apache 2 is installed over here. Reason being, okay, so it has been a lot of time. So this basically, because Apache 2 manifest was present on the master, this slave also requested master for the manifest or for any change, and the master told this slave to install Apache 2 on itself. No worries. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sudo apt-get and I'm gonna purge Apache 2. Okay, so this will uninstall Apache 2. And now if I do a sudo service Apache 2 status, so it says Apache service is not found. Now what I'll do a sudo puppet agent -test. So in this case there should be no file which should be created. Okay, so if I hit enter now, let's see what happens. So it says executed successfully. Now let's check what just happened. So I'll go inside /tmp. I'll do an ls over here. It has a file called status underscore apache. Let's check that. So status underscore apache. What we can do is, probably this could have been created earlier. Let us remove this file first. Status underscore apache we have removed. We'll have to add a sudo here. So it's removed now, right? Let me just check if this command actually works or not. So /bin/which Apache 2. So it is running service Apache 2 status. That's not there. So we'll have to remove this particular file. So we can do that. So sudo rm /user/sbin/apache 2. Either we can do this, or okay, let's first do this and then we can probably try something else as well. So user sbin slash apache2. Okay, so now if I do slash bin slash which apache2, yes, it's not returning anything now. So what I'll do is I'll just do an ls here. Okay, so my status file is not present, and now I'll do a sudo puppet agent -- test. I'll hit enter. Alright, so the catalog has been applied. Now let's check inside tmp file. So cd tmp, we are inside, and now let's check by doing an ll, or let me do an ls. Okay, so we don't have the status underscore apache file over here. Now it can be present over here. All I have to do is change the content. So we just learned about only if, right? Now let's learn about unless. So what unless means is until and unless this file or this command is not sending me 1, or is not false, or is not executing properly, till then do not run this command. The moment it does not or is not successful, run this command. Okay, so now what we will do is, because our Apache 2 is not present on slave 2, I can just change this to unless, right? And I can say Apache 2 is not installed. And now in this case, what will happen is if I go to my slave 2, I'll just do a puppet agent test again. And in this case, it should create a file inside the temp folder. So if I do an ls, it has the status underscore apache file. Let's do a cat on that, and it says Apache 2 is not installed. So basically we just made use of unless. So again, just for revision, what we just saw, unless basically deals with a command which it is waiting to become false. The moment that command becomes false, it will run this command. It will run this particular command which has been specified. Whereas the opposite of this is only if. Only if waits for this command to be successful, and only if this command is successful, this command will run. Unless this command is successful, this command will not run. Okay, so you can remember it like this. So with this, guys, we end the topic of basic coding in Puppet, right? In our next session, we'll be discussing about modules, and we'll be discussing about classes, right? So till then, guys, have a great day ahead and goodbye.